a communications revolution years ago. Now we're in a mobile revolution. We wanted to arm humanity to engage, manage, and monetize every connected device on the planet. And genuinely mean that, not just a big idea, but we want to reach out, and we've built systems to go out and touch every human being on Earth with a connected device. We ended up doing a lot of interesting things to address this, and I want to talk about a little bit of the big data and the location-specific component of it in a little bit different way, because a lot of what we do would fit sort of layer 7. Think of the application or intelligent services layer. And Phunware now has grown quite a bit. So it started with a few of us. We'll be 5 years old in February. We actually are up to a little over 150 people. Recently, over the weekend, it's been like the dream week for me. So I'm so excited that you have no idea. I got to go with my wife up to Washington, D.C. We were Inc. number 40 on their Inc. 500 fastest growing companies in America list. I think we were number 4 on the software side. Right before that, we got to go to some of the CXO awards and get to collect some things on behalf of a wonderful employee base and investor team that's been so generous to us. And then we actually had even more things happen. Last night, I got to go to the Austin Business Journal Awards, and we were ranked number 1 out of the Fast 50 for that. And you almost feel like it gets to be surreal. The most important thing, I'll share something personal. Found out great news today. My wife found it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. My wife found a lump. We've been married for 18 years. We have 4 kids. And we were terrified because this morning she had to go do a sort of a mammogram of sorts. And fortunately, they found out it was a calcium deposit, not cancer. So we're going to drink heavily later because we were quite worried. So thank you. So the scale that we're going to talk about today is that this is actually now outdated. We're growing so fast that we had to migrate off of AWS because it's cost inefficient when you start approaching 1 trillion transactions. This year, we're probably going to go through 1 trillion transactions, about 800 billion in the mobile cloud. We have 12 modules that solve everything you need to succeed on mobile. But we had to do that. About 800 billion of these are tied to what I call operational headaches, another 200 billion on monetization. We also run something called Tap It by Phunware, which is a global mobile ad network like you would think of for AdMob by Google or iAd or things like that. So we went after a massive thing, and we wanted to, it doesn't come through real good on the circles, but obviously enterprise software has changed radically. What we wanted to do is focus on how do you make something really compelling about the delivery of software, the pricing, the support, the maintenance, and everything that goes on. And the 3 disrupting forces, because we're talking about disruption here, have been the move to the cloud, the move to mobile, and Phunware was always mobile first and mobile native coding first, because we found no shortcuts, no silver bullets, and no panaceas. So if anyone thinks HTML5 works for mobile, you are wrong, I will tell you. If you think responsive web design works, I will tell you you're wrong for mobile. And if you think write once, run anywhere platforms will ever work on mobile, I will tell you you're wrong as well. So that's 3 things that people can come out swinging here when we get to Q&A. But in all seriousness, we have supported the largest brands at transactional scale around the world. If you download the National Football League, we built it. If you download NASCAR, CBS, NBC, if you download Edmunds, and on and on and on, biggest brands at scale in 175 countries and 10 languages, we have seen what works and what doesn't. And our infrastructure work would be a lot easier if some of these things really did work across every single device and every single OS. But the harsh reality is they don't. Not yet. Maybe HTML6 or 7 or 8, something will. But when we built this, we actually pioneered something that didn't exist. You've talked about platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, software as a service. We pioneered mobile as a service, MaaS. And now mobile as a service is where the puck is at, and multi-screen as a service is where the puck is going. So we have built an entire infrastructure, not just to focus on smartphones and tablets, but television, wearable computing, in-car infotainment, digital signage, and IP television. Because at the end of the day, it's semantics about OS, memory processing power, and what kind of screen size and resolution do I get for what I'm messing around with. So what I wanted to do is to not educate you on big data, because you all are going to forget more about big data than I'm going to know. But what I would suggest to you is we're trying to do this from a location-specific perspective. We've partnered very closely, and we're working, and we just launched a joint venue solution that's going to go out with Cisco. And if you want to think of Phunware, think of like BASF. We don't make the chips, we don't make the phones, we don't make the connected devices, we don't make the gear, the equipment, we don't even make the network. We make them all better. We make them more engaging, we make them easier to manage, and we make them more monetizable simultaneously. Think of us like a big jar of mobile Advil. And on client-server content, you can handle everything that you need to be successful on mobile at scale for big brands at these high-value touch points between their brand and what we call an anytime, anywhere audience. So the data is exploding, but we have a different problem with location. The location problem we have is, how do you define big data when you have 1 to 3 meter geofences at over 700,000 venues around the world with an X, a Y, and a Z coordinate, so that you can capture everything happening in real time with 1-second updates? Right now, if you have an iPhone or an iPad, you'll find that you get 15 to 20-second updates and maybe about 10 meters of accuracy. All the things that are going to come next year, we work with Qualcomm on the Snapdragon chipsets with their core technologies. And what you're going to find is they're going to be able to do 1-second updates with 1 to 3 meter. This isn't just indoor location technology specific to like a mobility services engine from a Cisco. This is things that get into areas like low energy Bluetooth and GPS and all of the above, because what everyone did with mapping outdoors now has to happen indoors. And so what we've done is to try to partner with the chipset providers, the device providers, the equipment providers, and the networks, so that if you walk into any facility and you penetrate that geofence, we can reach out and give you a custom branded mobile experience that's really compelling on the fly without any coding. And that gets to be very complicated. So what we've been trying to do and focus on this, and what we've been trying to work extensively on, is to say, what do you even capture in a 1 to 3 meter radius? What are the inputs and outputs? It's easy when we're all in here and we're stationary, but if you're at a mall, you're at a hospital, you're at a stadium, think of the velocity of the people going through. So if you take, call it 10,000 mobility service engines in the installed base around the world for a place like Cisco, and these are things that manage up to 500 access points at once. So these aren't small facilities like a Burger King or a McDonald's. This is like this university. It's a casino, a theme park. If you're managing up to 500 of those, and you start doing quick math, you figure for every 20,000 people that randomly walks through, that's 100 million off of each 5,000 venues. And then you figure how many people throughout the year are going through there. And then how do you capture that? Because first we had a tracking that was done by things like, originally, things like MAC address was okay before Apple would try to ban it. Before MAC addresses, we even had UDIDs. Now we're trying to go to IDFA, which is the ID for advertising, which is supposed to anonymize all of us, but it doesn't. So much like the NSA, don't be surprised. We know who you are, where you're at, what you like, what you don't, what you share, what you don't. And we integrate with places like Blue Kai and point of sale data. And then every time your device registers on the wireless network, we pull the MAC address, shoot it to our mobile cloud, create a nice big database so that we can triangulate who you are and know everything about you, even though we're not supposed to know any of that, right? Because when Apple did iOS 7, they banned the use of things like MAC address. But that actually comes off the chipset in the device. So you still get it because you have to register. So it's going to be very fascinating to think about what are the rules, how do we do it? Someone help me with the time just so I know, because 2 minutes, great. What I want to do is basically suggest to you that as these solutions roll out, location is going to be the most important thing. When you say, there was a question from a gentleman that said, how is big data relevant? How do you make money? So there's an expense side, I get that. We focus immensely on monetization. When there's $60 billion of advertising that's getting targeted in real time with real-time bidding to reach a specific demographic anywhere in the world right this second, and if you want 18 to 34-year-old Latin moms in the United States and you're willing to bid the most, you get that audience. Well, I can tell you which row of Wembley Stadium do you want to target a specific group to give them an offer right as we speak because they're watching Manchester United play Chelsea in a football game. That's pretty outrageous. If I know to a 3 meter accuracy that you're looking at a specific exhibit of dinosaurs in Fernbank Museum in Atlanta, that's pretty compelling. So what you're going to start seeing is a level of hyper-targeting for the monetization for the people that want to spend the money to reach the people that are where they're at, that they want right now, doing what the behavior with the context awareness of what's happening. And this is going to be an explosion of interesting information for business intelligence and data capture, but I agree, it's all about the insight. So what I'll do to close is just suggest to you that what you're going to see is the world will be defined by a geofence. And this world is going to be defined by a geofence that will trigger anything we want it to within our infrastructure. It will trigger things like loyalty and rewards, location-based services, wayfinding, directions, points of interest, social media streams for the dialogue going on at the venue. It's going to trigger sponsorship and advertisement. It's going to trigger the content you want when you want it right now. And you're going to overlay that with digital and physical offers in real time because there's no one down at the bar and they want to offer us 2-for-1 drinks right now. So all of these things are going to be possible because you need to take all the work that you guys are doing amazing jobs at, and we need to take all that behavior and data analysis and compact it into actionable intelligence for brands to reach the audience of choice wherever they may be. And this is what I think you're going to see, an explosion in the monetization. And I would agree on healthcare. Final comment, and I will shut up, is that we're launching something with the UHealth system down in South Florida on their hospital venues. And when they said, well, what are you going to do? And I said, just trust us. We're going to take what we learned at theme parks at Disneyland, overlay it with the National Football League and what we learned at stadiums, combine it with the Grove as a big retail mall in Los Angeles, overlay it with second screen companion functionality like you're watching CBS or NBC, and we're going to do it for HIPAA-compliant healthcare on site at your spot. As you can imagine, that's a pretty overarching task. But what you're going to see is this is going to radically alter patient healthcare from the perspective of you. I have 4 kids. They break their leg. I can go in and I have the entire workflow, the policy enforcement, the geofence triggers the communication, including the staff. And this is going to fundamentally alter everything about what we do. My name is Knitowski. Thank you very much for your time. And any questions, or I need to?
Yeah, let's take a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
It's my position. I'm going to charge you for using it. How does that work into your model? You just can't get my position unless I give you permission to get it. There's a big movement now, especially after the NSA announcements and things. That's my position and my data. And if you want to use it to make money, I'm going to charge you to make money. How are you going to get around that? How does that work into a model?
Well, so first of all, when we work with the Fortune 5000, we never take things from people that they don't volunteer on the application layer. So I'll be the first to say that if you go through and 95% plus of the world, when it says, will you allow push notices? Okay. And then, can I use your location? Okay. They just are trying to get to the application. So with the consent, then you do that. Now, the other thing I'll say is there's sort of truth to what you're saying about the network, and there's somewhat not truth. If you come here and you jump on to the Wi-Fi network here, each venue will make the decision as to whether you have to comply with something like a Facebook check-in to get free Wi-Fi service, or you can pay for it. Just like you may say, look, you can consume this content for free if you don't mind the ads and the other monetization, or you giving me something for it. Otherwise, you might have the right to pay for that and not have that happen. So that is much more about the policy and the workflow enforcement, because at a device level, it's just like when you buy at Target or other places. Once you have your name in a file in the credit reporting bureaus, all that information is getting traded. Every time you're in a loyalty program, it's getting shot up. And the idea that they don't know you're there buying, I think they try to keep it anonymous. But if you provide consent, they can then get much more targeted. So I think there's going to be choices in all of these where the user's in charge, but 90% of all applications in the world are free. They're not free. Someone's either paying for it for you, you're going to pay for it, or somebody is going to say, I'll be a sponsor, an advertiser, or you do a behavior and I'll give you what you want. But I don't think people are going to do it without consent, but I think you've probably provided consent much more than you may realize in things you've already done.
We'll have to start a movement to take back your position. Let's thank Alan again.
Thank you.
It's my great honor to introduce our afternoon keynote speaker. Herr Enge is one of the leading lights in the academic community in what we call